Good morning. Welcome to the Fun Side of Business podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Nick Hampton.
And I'm the other host, Gemma Addison.
Good morning, Gem.
Good morning.
Right, so today we have a guest that I'm going to do something totally new. So she has managed to put on headphones and a mic, decide she has one of the best porn voices on the planet. So is just going to introduce herself. So without further ado, mystery guest, please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Emma Propter King and I'm the head of communications for Church Manor Estates Company. I don't know what's happened, but I've put this headset on and I sound delectable.
I'm just loving it because that's normally how I feel when I put mine on.
I'm going to walk around with this all the time. I don't want to be too loud. I've got a very loud voice. Okay, so yeah, that's me.
There we go. Right, morning.
Morning.
Right, there we go. That's a new intro,
Follow
right?
that now, Nick.
We can't. That's it. It's done.
That's it, mic drop.
It's peaked already, as probably some of our listeners. Anyway, so moving on. Em, we're going to take you back to school days.
Okay, go.
Okay. By the way, are you an Em or an Emma?
Oh, anything. You call me whatever you like.
Okay. All right.
Makes no difference to me.
I'm sure some of our listeners have
said
got
that very
names for you already. Okay, so where did you go to school? Like, grew up locally or somewhere else?
So I first of all started my school days at a Catholic school in Frinton, which is hilarious. And then I went to the girls' school in Wolverston.
Okay, so
Maybe
hang on.
6
First
to
of all, in
18.
Frinton,
Yeah, I grew up.
passport needed?
No, I lived inside the gates.
Inside the gates.
Yeah.
You just stayed inside, so you didn't need to deal with the common people.
Exactly. And then, so then my parents bought a business in Woodbridge and I started going to school, living in Frinton, but I went to school at the girls' school. So
Obviously.
quite a long commute when you're 6.
Couldn't tell from your voice, right?
I know. And what's quite funny is my dad's got quite an Essexy accent and my mother's was pulling him up on it. But yeah, it's a learned voice for sure. Because basically I feel like it helps me achieve things. So I've learned it and I do posh it up.
Well, I was going to say, I mean,
Posh it up.
you have that, like, you know, maybe Kent voice or Surrey or something, or
Surrey.
Hampshire.
A lot of people think I'm foreign.
But that's
because
actually
it's like a
Essex girl, right?
Yeah, fully Essex,
Okay.
Essex.
But
yeah.
you keep this up while you're like at home on your own?
Oh, this is my voice now all the time.
All the time?
Yeah,
Love it.
all the time.
There we go.
It's well polished.
Thank you
Incredibly
very much.
well
I'll take that. Yes, I went to the girls' school from the age of 6 to 18. So, I mean, that's a traumatic experience, isn't it? Imagine being in a school of 700 pubescent girls. Literally
I
prepares you for life.
couldn't think of anything.
It's a war
Girls can be the
zone.
worst.
Oh, girls
can't
are the
they?
worst.
Yeah.
Not can be, they are.
Did
Girls
you
are
spend-
not designed to be friends with each other.
Did you spend a lot of time socialising in Woodbridge?
Not really, because when I went to school there, then, I mean, I went to school in London on the weekend as well, 2 schools. So
As you do.
No, so I wanted to be a musician. We're skipping some here, but I mean, I wanted to be a musician, and my mum's basically said, well, if you want to do this, then you've got to do it properly. So I went to music school in the weekends in London. I went to Guildhall School of Music and Drama at the weekends.
Wow.
So I didn't really socialise that much. I was quite dweeby and didn't really have any friends. And yeah, so I kind of socialised with people in London. more
Okay,
than I
we're
did.
going to carry on with that one. So did the music and drama like start? Or was it just you hit 18 and went, yeah, I don't want to do that?
No, so I went to music college for my university degree. So I actually went to conservatoire when I left school, which was a really wild choice, going from a really, really academic school, doing something that's completely non-academic, because everybody was going off to, be a mathematician or a physicist or an architect
Yeah.
or whatever. And it was a really wild card choice because it just wasn't really done.
Did they have weird mind-blowing subjects at Woodbridge School? And it might not be for you. So, like, I've got a friend of mine that
No,
went to
they only
Ipswich
did-
School and he pulled out some of his old school reports. He went, we'll have a laugh and go through my old school reports. And he had something from his Russian teacher. And I'm like, who learns Russian at high school?
We all did Latin, but
Okay.
I think most people did Latin of my era anyway. So, no, not really. Just
Okay.
Just
normal
your
academic
normal
schools.
geography,
Yeah,
history,
geography,
maths,
history,
okay.
maths, sailing, that kind of thing.
Horse
It's on the river.
riding.
It's on the river. No, actually, when I was in junior school, somebody did bring their pony in for show and tell, which is hilarious. And the other day, I did say to somebody, "Oh, well, of course, everyone can ride a pony." And then I thought, "Oh, Emma, maybe they can't."
It's just like riding a bike.
Not dissimilar. I can't ride a bike. So yeah, so that's what I did. And then
But can you make a horse gallop?
Yeah.
There you go.
Of course you can.
That shows the difference. Jem, can you...
While she puts on her sexy voice.
Jem, do you know how to get a BMX and ride it over like 2 bricks with a...
Of course.
There we go. There you-
Is the BMX a small one?
I don't even know where to go with this.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, back to me. I went to conservatoire in Manchester. So I wanted to be a musician was
Yep.
fully committed, did a 4-year degree. And then I realised actually musicians are really, really poor. And that's just not really what I wanted for life.
Okay. Which part of the music industry were you thinking of getting
No,
into?
I was going to be a classical musician.
Yeah, I was going to say they're probably not the most.
And also because
well-paid.
I played the bassoon, which is a kind of wild card choice as well. And there's maybe 6 to 8 jobs in the UK
Yeah.
for everyone who does that instrument. So that's quite tough.
Are there even many bassoonists in an orchestra? Like
2.
if you hit like Royal Philharmonic.
I've played with the Royal Philharmonic. Actually.
Okay, but there's
2.
2 bassoonists.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not something you
Yeah.
hear often.
Can we
is it?
just what? Oh, I played with the Royal Philharmonic.
I know.
Or I'm a
To be
bassoonist.
fair, I may.
There's a lot of firsts in the podcast.
So this is what I think people think I'm just gallivanted through life and have had loads of opportunities, but actually I've worked like really hard. I've never had a summer holiday. In school holidays, I was at band camp, I was at music things, I was gigging. When I was at university, I gigged every weekend. I worked because you have to be in music. So and my parents have always worked really hard. So for me, that's just normal. So then when I had to get a job, a real job, I left university and thought, actually, I don't want to be a musician. And my parents said, well, you're not just going to have a lovely time. So they sent me to, you may never have heard of this, but it's called St. James and Lucy Clayton, which is a school in London. And it's a kind of finishing school / secretarial college. And they, teach you how to do your colours and, shorthand and touch type and how to be presentable as a human. And yeah, it was a really, really weird environment because you had to have a degree to go, and you just used to sit there and touch type and shorthand and learn how to answer the telephone correctly and all of these things, how to basically be a multifunctional, old-fashioned wife, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not very much my personality. So I then went and got a job after that, like went straight from there to a job.
Okay. We're going to keep skipping back.
Yeah, go.
I'm only doing this for our listeners.
Go on.
Do you have any Bandcamp stories?
Oh, so many.
Okay.
I mean,
okay, you've got to start with this one time at Bandcamp,
one time
and then
at
you can tell
Bandcamp.
us the story.
This one time at Bandcamp. No, I can't do it. It's ridiculous. It's hilarious. Just, when I said to you my career's going to get cancelled, I think I've just found a new one. No, yeah, musicians are wild, but they work really hard. They are wild. And when I was at university, it was crazy. It was really, but that's kind of the thing of going to university, isn't it? You have to kind of unhinge and you have to do all these things. And you have to be wild. And I was really, really wild actually until I got with my boyfriend who then turned into my husband. So that kind of calmed me down. But yeah,
I can actually imagine a wild Emma.
I was always wild. And it's still in there somewhere. I don't get her out very often because people of Ipswich would be terrified.
Yeah, but we've just heard before we hit the record button when she went, everyone drinks tequila. You can stick that gin.
I just don't like it in that big balloon thing. Like I don't understand why you need a fishbowl of gin. It just makes no sense to me with a strawberry in it. It's like, what kind of drink is this that I'm having at the Woolpack? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Just give me a tequila and tonic.
Obviously, I'm tequila and orange. But
Oh, tequila and tonic I always have with a fresh lime. If anyone comes at me with a lime cordial, I'd be devastated. But
send it back.
Do you know it's agar? It's sugar-free. It's healthy. You physically can't get a hangover from
One of
tequila.
your 5 a day.
Thanks. So yeah,
We've gone well off.
Okay, right. So you've gone through finishing school.
kind of.
So you're now the ultimate housewife,
I'm
stroke
basically now the
secretary,
ultimate,
stroke
yeah.
PA.
I mean, yeah, honestly, I can shorthand 100 words a minute. They used to make you watch like movies and shorthand the whole thing and then say it back and stuff like that. So I did that, and then I joined up with some recruitment agencies, started looking for a job, and I met a lady who worked for a family in Chelsea, and she said, you'd be absolutely great in our office. And they had a PA each, the husband and wife had a PA, and then they had like a fixer, runner, doer, junior kind of person who just ran around Chelsea doing all the jobs, picking up all the stuff they didn't have time to do. And I thought, great, this sounds like an easy way to have a nice time. But within 2 weeks of being there, both of their PAs had given in their notice, one of whom had been there for 35 years. So I was kind of chucked massively in at the deep end.
Hang on. So what happened with the PAs if they've been there 35 years?
One of them just moved on to something else, and the other one didn't want to stay without the other one because it was they were Lebanese, so it was a really odd environment. There was a lot of shouting, there was a lot of, they just had very high temper. I mean, 1 year they had 30 PAs in 1 year. And I was there the whole time. Yeah, you would go in and they'd say, he did like, I don't like your shoes, you're fired, or whatever. I mean, you had to have blonde hair to work there. I remember when I first started, I had really, really bleached blonde hair, as everyone did, and don't want to reveal my age. And I then one weekend went absolutely crazy and dyed my hair brown. I mean, imagine. And I sat there the whole day thinking, oh my God, it's probably going to find me. And then at the end, he said to me, it's actually okay, your hair's fine. I was like, thank God. And then because they were non-doms, I travelled with them everywhere they went. So it was half time in London, half the time in LA, and then we would go to wherever they went. So I was with them all the time.
Okay.
Which is
That's not a bad first job, is it?
Well, you say that, but it was a hugely interesting job in the terms of they had no jobs. So everything I did for them was personal for their lives.
Oh,
so
right.
It was shopping in Harrods, it was doing this, it was going to Paris to get a dress, it was all really crazy stuff. But it was on my own all the time. The only other staff that I had were the house staff. And we had 50 house staff across all their properties, who all of whom
isolated, isn't it?
I was in charge of, and all of whom were like 40 to 50-year-old men when I was only 22. So it was a huge experience.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was like living my best life. I mean, if I wanted to go somewhere, I got on his own 737. Like I didn't think about anything like that. It was good.
Jem, do you ever think you'd hear that one? If I want to go somewhere, I'd just get on their own 737 and just fly.
Like he made
obviously.
me an office on their plane. Like it was so unreal, and it was so out of anything that anyone had ever experienced. But it has completely desensitized me to anything. I'm never impressed by anything now
because
of that. Yeah. And all their friends are celebrities, and it was just what it was. It wasn't weird for me for George Clooney to text me. That wasn't a weird thing. And then you get to a point where you think, actually, am I becoming not a great person here?
Okay, hang on. We're going to have to ask these questions now.
Okay.
Number one, did George Clooney ever text you?
Yeah.
Okay. Number two, who was the most famous person to ever text you?
Most famous. I don't know how you
At the
judge
time.
fame.
At the time.
I remember one year Sting gave me a birthday present. That was quite nice.
Okay, that is a good
That's
one.
it.
Yeah, Sting gave me a birthday present. Lots of different things happened. Like I had spoken to Obama on the phone.
Okay.
Loads of stuff like that. But to me, that was just normal.
Okay, what did Sting get you for your birthday?
A Tiffany bracelet.
Okay, we could literally go through these things all the time. It would be so much fun to just talk about like
how happy Nick is right
Emma's celebrity
now.
life. Like,
But that's the thing. It isn't my life. It's their life.
It was someone else's
My
life.
job is to make their life glamorous. And in the meantime, my life was finishing at 3 a.m., never sleeping. I never took a day off. I was working all the time. I'd go away. They'd bring me back from holiday. Like I couldn't go to the cinema.
What's the weirdest thing they brought you back for? Like come back and then go, oh yeah, can you just go and fetch that coffee from so-and-so?
No, I mean, a different family, but I worked later on in my career. I actually worked on Christmas Day because their 7-year-old's emails didn't work. Because Santa needs to get an email through to a 7-year-old on Christmas Day. But you're like gasping, but when you sign up for that kind of job, you sign your life away. You can't go to the cinema, you can't go to theatre, you have to be on the phone,
I guess it doesn't matter what time of day it is.
No, and they're paying you to be available to them 24/7.
24/7, yeah.
And you have to completely adjust your mindset. Like if you start questioning why they're asking you to measure out the different size of pasta to see what's the best type of pasta in a lasagna, you will lose your head. But you just have to go, well, they're paying me, that's what they want me to do, I might as well do it.
Wow.
So
it sounds glamorous.
It sounds glamorous, and it was really fun, don't get me wrong, and I loved it, but it's also really high stress.
I can imagine.
So,
Okay, so was it like how many different families and things?
So that was my
through?
first job, and then I went and worked for an American family, which was a really unreal job. So the guy was very, 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 very well known in finance, very, very super, super wealthy. And
was that based here or based in
London?
Okay, London.
And he was American, and he wanted to set up a company that was going to call 11 because he dialed it up to 11, man. And he was like, and I'd never seen that film, so I was like, I don't actually know what you're talking about. And we all had like frat names in the office. I was Cupcake, and it was actually awful because our IT guy was this massive Indian guy, and everyone used to call him Panda, and now I'm looking back on it, that's so bad. Yeah, I went and worked for them, and I worked for his wife initially. She was an interior designer. You can't see me doing the air quotes, but she's an interior designer.
There's a lot of air quotes going on right now. Yeah.
And then I worked for her initially, and then I ended up working for him, and he did things to us. Like he had a huge house in the countryside. He didn't like his wife's cooking. The housekeeper wouldn't go down there. So he just bought the local pub, which was derelict, and then gave it to me and was like, I want it up and running by Christmas, 3 months. But you've got no budget. You can do whatever you like. So you can do those things if you've got money and stuff like that. So that was a kind of weird job. And whilst I was working there, I got a phone call from a family that were moving to Suffolk, and they wanted somebody that knew Suffolk. And at that time, somehow in the midst of all this chaos, I had got married, and I bought a house in Suffolk. And I was thinking, my husband had come back from London, and he was thinking about, we wanted to be there more full time. So I thought, well, actually, this could be quite handy to have a family based in Suffolk. So I came back.
I have a question.
Go on.
Okay, so you in your work life, you're
Yeah.
kind of desensitized to money. right? Whatever the numbers are, it's like, whatever, there's a credit card. How did you get married? Because surely, like, everyone's throwing stuff at you and going, oh, you can do this and you can do this. Were you quite, like, aware of your money, but desensitized to other people's?
I don't understand the question. How did I get married? I went to a
you know,
church
I
and said,
mean,
I do.
yeah, but you know what I mean? Like getting married can cost you anywhere from 400 quid to 4 million if you want to.
When Michael and I got married, we actually wanted to have 20 people at our wedding, but I'm an only child and I'm an only grandchild, and my parents and my family wanted a much bigger wedding. So we did have a very low-key wedding, just because I'm quite a low-key person. Like, the only bit that I really cared about was the actual wedding bit. So, I mean, I'm divorced now, so that was kind of a waste of money in the first place, wasn't it? But, good experience while it happened. No. So, yeah. But no, I don't maybe it has made me more aware of my money. It's definitely made me chase money more because I've seen the freedom that it can give you, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, from a guy saying, I don't like my wife's cooking, to let's just buy a part.
But
that's what I'm saying. You know, I mean, it must just be that kind of difficult thing where it's almost like, well, look, you know, I'm bringing in 100,000 a year, so we'll go and work harder and get more then. Because I like to just be able to use this card and just go.
No, because I am fiercely independent. I don't need.
I do get that from you, by the way.
And I actually find it really insulting when people are like, "Oh, did your husband buy that? Did you do that?" And you know, like when I bought my house in Suffolk, people are like, "Oh, your parents gave you the money." No, they didn't. Or you know, did you? I remember Mike had got a different car and they said, oh, you know, well, this happened. I was like, no, actually, we both just work really, really hard. I've grafted for this. And I think it was at that point that I thought, actually, I'm now deciding that I no longer care about anyone else's opinion because I know what I've achieved. I know what I've done.
Good.
Yeah.
They're going to have that opinion anyway. So I kind of don't really care.
I heard a famous, or not, I don't know if it's a famous phrase. I heard a phrase and the phrase was, everyone will be envious of what you have. No one is ever envious of what you did to get it.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. So I don't really, I know that sounds really bad, but I just haven't got time or energy to waste on anyone else's opinion that I have no value for.
What is that quote that I brought you for your office from Wolf of Wall Street? It's I'm 90% sure you don't like me.
I'm 99% certain people don't like me, but I'm 100% certain I don't care.
Yeah. I mean, I am actually quite delightful, so I think people do like me. But I think
you are wonderful.
You feel like that about yourself, Nick. But yeah, I also think I don't have time to waste the energy on it. And the people that like me and the people that know me, I've got the time for. Other than that, I can't really be bothered.
Yeah, and then real people know how you've.
Yeah, I was at a thing the other day, a women's event, which is not my favourite. I'm not trying to slag women, but I'm not a feminist at all. And they said to me, oh, wouldn't you be really upset if somebody felt like you'd slept with someone to get that job? And I was like, no, I'd be absolutely delighted.
I'd shout about it.
Yeah, I've still got the job. I know what I did to get it. If somebody else wants to think that's my skill set, that's also fine. Yeah. Like, it doesn't take away from what I've achieved because you feel like that. That seems like more something about you than me.
Yeah.
So I think you just got to live your life like that.
I'm gonna go off on a tangent now.
Go on.
Okay, only because you brought it up. Women's events.
Yeah.
Right. I think they are the worst idea ever known to man ever. Now,
we literally had this conversation.
Okay, so before I kind of go along and get every feminist who hates me like even more than they already do. So I am one of the people of like ultimate female empowerment, right? So in my business, there are more women than men. Mm-hmm. On the board of directors, there are more women than men. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'm all for women are just as capable of men as anything at all. But that to me then does the exact opposite by saying we should have a women's only networking event. Because if you turn it on its head and said, by the way, we're going to have a men's only networking event and no women are allowed, everyone would be up in arms about it.
I do totally agree with that.
And I think women can stand alone. They've got their place
with men
in the business world, not business men, not business women, but business people. They can hold their own. They're perfectly capable. They've got such great skill sets. Why go along and isolate?
Having gone to girls' school and, you know, having a really super successful mother who had her own business, who my father actually worked for, which is quite odd at that time. I don't really agree with anything to do with women's events. I think you set your own standards for life and you elevate those around you to those standards. If they don't want to come, that's fine. Mm-hmm. That's their decision. You still live at your standard. And these things turn into men bashing, and men are great. Men are very useful. And you need both sets of skills to be successful.
Yes.
And we've gone too far now to the point where we're saying we're better. We're not better, we're different.
Correct.
And I don't, we've isolated men too far now, I think.
Yes.
And I also dislike women that say, oh, I didn't get this because of men. This didn't happen. Okay, well, that may well be true, but what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Why don't you, instead of shouting about it, instead of complaining about it, put your energy into changing it?
Correct.
And I love men. I think they're great. I think we should take lessons from them. We should be louder. Men brag about basically the bare minimum. We don't. Why don't we do that? Why are we not more positive about ourselves? Why do we not build each other up? Why do we not have friendships in the same way? And with so many lessons we could take from that. And women don't want to because they think it's detrimental to them, but it's not. It's just learning. I mean, I flirt with everybody and it gets me what I want. Well, I couldn't do that if I was a guy.
But this is the thing. So my brain works in total analysis, right? Everything I do is analytical, okay? But if I go and see something and go, well, hang on, they dealt with this in a different way and got a better result than I did, then I want to learn from that.
100%.
And I don't care whether that's a man, a woman, a child, or whatever. However that achieves the best outcome, that's what's to learn from.
Yeah, and I think a lot of these women's events that I go to, they're all so keen on making their point heard about how badly they've been treated or how things have happened. But there's so much power in silence. Like, if somebody treats you badly and you go back at them and you keep right, what are you actually achieving? You're not doing anything differently. All you're doing is making yourself upset. So if
you're reliving.
Yeah, so if somebody's done something to you and you don't agree, make your point and move on. Yeah. Change it, do something different. And I don't need to sit around. I work in a hugely male-dominated industry. I mean, there's very few women in property, but it is what it is.
But I mean, again, I think everything always has where your mindset is. So if you have something where you've been treated badly, you can sit there and moan about it, which is going to achieve nothing, or go and use it as your fuel. I mean, I have one. So I have, like, in the past, I've had some horrendous business partners to work with. Now, when they go along and it's like, oh yeah, they're going to do this and pull the dirty on me, I can sit there and go, oh, it wasn't fair. Yeah, exactly. Oh, they did this, it's not right. Or I go along and say, do you know what? I'm going to go along and make myself 10 times as successful as you are, and you're then going to be the one going, oh, it's not fair. I should have like done this. I should have, and you just go, just use it. It's literally fuel for your fire.
But also, I think women need to be kinder to each other, and I know that's the old hat, and everybody says that. But I'm not saying you actually have to like everybody. You don't, and that's also fine. But we do tear each other down, and we are awful to each other. We're always in competition. Yeah, we always have to. I mean, I am the worst for this, but my friends, I will like be their biggest cheerleader in public and in private. But if I think they've done something stupid, I'll obviously call them on it. But I do think women need to learn how to be friends better.
And I also,
do you think that's come from you being in an all-girls school?
No, I think it's just come from my basic dislike of people.
Okay.
So, and I think also I didn't think I really realised until the last 5 or 6 years that it's actually really rare not to care what people think about you. And I think that girls care way too much about that.
Society hasn't helped that.
Yeah, so they're always,
social media hasn't helped.
People are always going to have an opinion on you anyway. So why does it matter?
And I think when people are looking for negatives and stuff, they'll always find them if they look. I mean, I remember hearing someone, and they went, and I think someone was doing this like huge stand on a podium and protest. Men have all the top positions in power, right? And at the time, Theresa May was the Prime Minister, the Queen was in charge of the country, and Angela Merkel was probably in charge of EU. And you go, sorry, the 3 highest profile jobs in this country and in this continent are all held by women. But if you look in London, and it's like, if you look anywhere, you'll find find what you're looking for.
Exactly, yeah.
But just get on and do it. Yeah. These women have shown you there's no restriction. No one was saying, oh, we won't vote you in for Prime Minister because you're a woman.
No, true.
No one's saying, oh, by the way, the Queen can't rule. We need a king. Just is what it is.
Yeah.
It's just their personal experiences, isn't it? Like you said, some people grow through what they've been through. Others just stay stagnant.
Anyway, what an amazing tangent. Right, back to America. So American...
Yeah, I worked for an American, and then I came back to Suffolk, and I started working for a Suffolk family, high net worth Suffolk family. And then about 2 years into that, after a really grueling trip, I got in my car, and I phoned my mum and said, I'm quitting this job today. She was like, oh, any reasons? I don't want to do this life anymore. Like, I want to get a dog, and I want to sit down in my house and watch TV. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore.
I love that.
And I think that she thought I was having some kind of mental breakdown or drinking at lunchtime or something. She's like, oh, okay, darling. Yeah, that sounds good. Have a think about it. And then I literally just went and gave him my notice. And in fairness to me, I gave them 3 months notice and I said, I'm not, you can find someone.
Had anything happened that day for you to think?
No, I just was like, what am I achieving here? Nothing. And, in fairness to me, they replaced me with 5 people. So it wasn't like I was knackered. I think that was the other thing. I was knackered.
Yeah.
And I thought, actually, I'm going to do something else. So I left and I didn't have a job. And I thought, right, I'm going to have a year off. And after 3 weeks, my husband said to me, get a job, because if I have to come down to any more to-do lists, I'm going to absolutely go. Poor man. So I saw a job in the paper. That was after quite a grueling time trying to find a job in Suffolk, because I didn't really have a compatible skill set with Suffolk. I didn't really have anything tangible to say.
I was going to say, you probably had more tangible with London and LA.
Yeah, exactly.
Than you did
and I didn't want to come, I didn't know anyone here. I didn't have any network here.
Yeah.
And I applied for a job, and I was at Church Manor, and I went in, and Stephen Clark, CEO, was working for him in the similar kind of role, but more business than personal. And it was 9 to 5. It was like, brilliant, this is part-time. And it was like a third of the salary that I was earning. But I thought, I don't care. I just want to do something while I think about what I want to do.
Yeah.
And it was a maternity contract. So I was like, this is absolutely perfect. I'm going, do this for 9 months, give myself brain a break and reset. And went in. He knew loads of people I knew. We got on really well. And then 13 years later, I've been there.
Wow. And
So,
you get the chance to sit at home with your dog. Did you get a dog?
Oh my gosh, have I got a dog? Yeah.
Okay.
Tiny baby Pomeranian. She's so sweet. A dog, I've got a cat, I got divorced. A whole life change. But it was actually really interesting. And I've been there a long time now, which is...
So what's the lessons you've learned in property? So Church Manor, what do they actually do? Because I know obviously they're like a big...
Yeah, so they only
player.
do commercial property. We've really only done in the east of England, actually been going since, they've been nearly 40 years they've been building in the east of England. They've built, so like the first out-of-town office, they Colchester Business Park, first out-of-town office parks. They sort of set up there. I think they're really groundbreaking stuff. In Chelmsford, we did Chelmsford Business Park. We've just done Burkett's office.
Are they development only and then sell, or is it development and retain?
Development. We the only thing we retain is in Huntingdon. We have a shopping centre, so we own a lot of the high street there, which is how I ended up as being chair of the business infrastructure district for Huntingdon.
As you do,
just as you do.
Just drop that one in.
So that's
head of the thing in Huntingdon. Not even live anywhere close to it.
No, I know that's kind of crazy, but we have tenants there, and that's actually really nice to know that they've got the support in the town. So that's why I do that. But yeah, what's been good about being in Church Manor is when I went in, I knew nothing about property, but I knew that I could do my PA job. Absolutely no issue. And Stephen's very chill about letting me do what I want. So I would say, well, I think we should get this, we should do this website. I think we should get LinkedIn. I think we should do that. And he was like, yeah, sure. If that's what you want to do, prove to me that it works and do it. So that was a really good experience for me, because I basically just went, well, I want to learn how to do websites. I want to learn how to do this. I want to promote us in a way that we didn't really promote before.
Complete 360 to what you're used to. Like when people telling you this is what needs to be done. Whereas you're now saying,
exactly.
Look, I've got an idea,
much
let
more
me
autonomous.
do it.
Yeah, exactly, which I like. And yeah, it was a long-standing company. I got on really well with him, and I picked up more of his personal stuff, and I've just stayed there because I like him and I like the work. So,
you seem really happy.
Yeah, really happy. I really like it.
What's your official role there?
Head of communications.
Okay.
But I mean, I'm also, office manager. I just write whatever is applicable on the form that I'm filling in.
Whatever my job needs to be. That's
today.
What I'm writing.
But I don't really hold much stall in that. I think you do whatever job you needs to be done. We're a small team, so I think especially then everyone just needs to, if it's that day you're restocking toilet paper or you're on a board meeting, it doesn't really matter, because somebody
Everyone
needs to be there and needs
in.
to be representing Church Manor in the way that it should be represented.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel about that.
Everyone's pulling together for the brand.
Exactly.
And for the business.
Yeah. That's what I think.
Amazing.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at now. So it's quite a long journey to get there.
Okay, so is craziest request, I'm still going around because in my head I've still got this like, oh yeah, you just get called at any time. Craziest request a 7-year-old email on Christmas Day?
No.
Or you've had way more
crazy nuts requests. It's difficult to pin it down because to me it was so normal at the time. I'm trying to think now. I mean, I would say the first people I worked for probably were the most unhinged in terms of crazy requests. I've washed well, I personally didn't wash because I don't really do washing, but the housemaids,
outsourced.
The housemaids washed towels in 200 different types of washing powder at different strengths. We could all have a smell. Like, it was 12 of us having a sniff test, see like which was the best one.
Sniff test 200 washing powders.
Yeah, to see like what was the best one. All sorts of absolutely mental things.
I'm just thinking of Devil Wears Prada. I don't know.
Oh no, it's exactly like that.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know, they see something in a magazine, they just snap a photo, be like, "Find me this."
Go and find this exact tile.
And there's never really too much information, but it is just how it is. I mean, the American family I worked for, he was absolutely convinced that we were going to have some kind of nuclear holocaust, and a dirty bomb would go off in Sloane Square. So we had a disaster management consultant come in to like teach us how to cope in this extreme incident. This is going to happen, and it was crazy.
So you had dirty bomb training.
Yeah.
Like,
and I was like, this is just, I mean, I volunteered to stay behind because, oh God, they were all going to fly to Iceland. I mean, I'd rather die in a bomb than go and live in Iceland.
In a bunker in Iceland.
That's the thing. All of their stuff is kind of so normal to them that it's normal. We just go, oh, okay, that's what we're doing today.
See, to us, I know we're sitting here like, wow, this is fucking amazing. However, imagine living that and being called any time of the day with very little information. You've got to go and achieve this task. And if you don't do it, that's your job gone.
Oh, facts, yeah.
If you don't answer the phone, that's your job gone.
Facts, yeah. And I do, credit to my friends and family at the time because I was just in and out. I was never fully present for anyone really, apart from people paying me, which is the way it should be really. Yeah. But yeah, so the fact I managed to hang on to any kind of life during that time was a miracle.
Yeah,
that's so difficult. How did you migrate from like LA, London,
Suffolk
to Suffolk?
Well, because I grew up here and I'm a really family oriented person, and I moved back and I bought a house opposite my parents who live next door to my grandma, and I wanted to be with my parents. My grandparents were getting older, and I wanted to help my mum. My parents had a big, really successful business in Suffolk, and I wanted to come back and give them more support so they could go away and stuff. So to me, it was kind of a natural transition, and I was ready for it. I'd hit my...
I love the contrast of that.
So did you already kind of keep everything quite grounded? Like, so even though you're in London, you'd still kind of, you could get a day.
I am a really grounded person.
Come and see your parents.
Yeah, I see my parents. I speak to my mum 4 or 5 times a day. She's my absolute rock. She's my best friend. Like my dad's one of the most, my dad has given me reverse daddy issues because he's so good that no men can compare. It's like
sounds
the worst.
Just like me, doesn't it?
Like you.
It's, honestly, we're like the same person.
I'm like, why? What do you mean you're not going to do this in the middle of the night for me? My dad would. Like, what do you mean? Like, there's no, and very, very luckily, I'm still super close to my ex-husband, and he is also the same. He would do anything for me at any time, as would my boyfriend. So I've got these 3 men all the time doing whatever I want. It's fabulous. Well curated by me. No, so it's an interesting one. But no, I've always been like that. I've always been really family orientated, and that to me wasn't weird. I wanted the change. And after I'd left my last family, I had an opportunity to go and work for somebody who I really would have loved to have worked for. And I had to really think about it because I thought this could be really good, but I just thought I haven't got it in me to go and do that kind of life anymore. I kind of not burnt out from it, but I just didn't want to, so I wouldn't have been good at it.
Yeah,
because I didn't
Your
want
heart
to do
wasn't
it.
in anymore.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, you must look back and go like, what a life I've had.
I don't really think about it, but then it's interesting because my lovely, lovely Helen Couch, she was saying to me, you've achieved so much, you've done so much. And I was thinking, I don't really think about it. It's just been what I've done. And honestly, I've basically just done what's been expected of me. I went to a great school that I was lucky enough to go to. My parents slogged to get me there. I worked hard. I went to university. I got a degree. That's what I was supposed to do. I got married. That's what I was supposed to do. I went to work. I had money. I haven't done anything. I haven't achieved anything out of the norm.
I think that's what I take from it. As much as you've had all these amazing experiences, you weren't given any of that. Just, here you go, take it, run with it. You've worked your arse off since you were a child. Schools.
That's what you should do.
Yeah. And that's what I'm That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, but it might be what you should do, but it's also not what most people do.
No, I know, and I think I get really cross now with this new generation of entitlement. And I think you're never going to know the stress of working your fingers to bone. You're never going to know what it is to fall into bed at 2 a.m. and think, oh my God, I'm so tired.
And then get up at 6
and then set your alarm and it goes, it's going to wake you up in 2 hours and 36 minutes and you go,
I know. When I was working in Munich, we were on a film set and it was absolutely brutal. I was trying to do a TV show and a film at the same time. I had no other PAs. The nanny had just quit. I had 3 kids on set with me. I had one of the principals was getting stressed about the type of cheesy Wotsits they had. You know, I was getting back at like 3 a.m. We had bodyguards because it was, and I was just like, what is this happening? But you're not going to know the excitement of that and the achievement of it. And, you know, my first ever paycheck, from my job, I took my mum and bought her a pair of shoes that she'd always wanted and never bought because she'd always given me so much money and everything they'd done was for me, which is unreal. I mean, best parents ever. And I felt like the satisfaction of knowing I earned that money and did that for them.
I can now give
that's
something
so
back.
nice.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's a shame people aren't going to have that now.
No.
It's very different now.
Well, I mean, you're going to get the, 1 in 50,000 that actually makes it as an influencer that goes, oh, let me make the next video about how I cleared off my parents' mortgage. But the other 49,999 that are sitting in a room going and saying, aren't I funny doing my TikTok dance and getting nothing? By the way, 250,000 views I hear on one of your TikToks.
I am an excellent TikToker. It's nothing to do with work. Don't. If
you're looking for property,
if you're looking for property, you're not going to find it. I just love it. I think it's so fun, and I think it kind of. It's like I love Instagram. I love all social media. I think it's amazing what people have achieved on there. I think it's phenomenal. I mean, the Kardashians. How's that happened? But, I love it. I'm all up for a TikTok dance, TikTok trend. I'll do anything. I love it. It's fun.
And if you could have any job in the world, seeing as you've had such a varied career, even though you're going to say, yeah, I've just done the same stuff, not really, what would be your ultimate job?
Oh, God. I actually really like my job. The actual physical work that I do every day for people in their lives, in their businesses, I really enjoy that. I'm not someone that needs to be like the chair of a company. I don't need that. I like doing the behind the scenes admin, the bits and bobs that make other people successful. I actually really enjoy that. But I wouldn't choose something different at this point. Because if I wanted a different job, I'd just go and do it. I mean,
I love that. Yeah, if I wanted to be quality control for a tequila company, I'd just go and get that job and be done.
If you get that job, I'm coming with
you. I don't really believe in all this, chase your passions.
Yeah, job share.
Like, I don't think you should chase your passions. I think you should chase demand. That's the way you make money. And ultimately, I am extremely materialistic and I want to make money and that's how I want to be successful because I want to just be able to go and have the financial freedom to do what I want. So I love my job and I wouldn't change it. I don't think I certainly wouldn't change any jobs I've had, even though at the time they were brutal. But yeah, I wouldn't change it.
But at the time, you didn't see them as brutal. Well, you probably did.
I probably did, but I didn't have time to think about it. So it was fine. But no, I wouldn't change it. I don't think. I think I would still do the same job I have now.
Amazing.
Interesting. I don't think I knew that till just now.
There we go. Find out something new. Thank you so much for being on.
That's all right. Thanks so much for having me.
You have been amazing.
I will be taking this microphone and headset with me so that I can create my second career.
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll put like an OnlyFans sub like at the bottom for you, so everyone could just link straight to your page. It's like, yeah, she's not doing feet or hands or anything else, just voice.
I'll be one of those people that just records sounds like people who sell their bath water. I'll be recording a saying and sending it to people.
That's it.
Just hear the splashing
honestly,
around in the
I reckon we're going to get the most comments on this one now and going, yeah, has she started her OnlyFans yet? Can we get this on? Right, okay. Right, anyway, so there we go from, that might be your headline. From ponies to OnlyFans or something.
Oh whatever. My gosh, no, don't put that.
No, probably not. Yeah. Well, we don't know. AI sometimes gives us some suggestions after it listens to it and goes, yeah, maybe you should do this. So yeah.
Funny.
There we go. Great. Anyway.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you ever so much.
Thank you.